All right. Good evening. And thank you for enjoying it with a six pack. The Scotty Six Pack, the only podcast talking all things Wisconsin sports with you 6 days a week. All things Wisconsin sports, a commitment for the Wisconsin Badgers basketball team in August for the upcoming season. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that we'd be talking a commitment when the season is just weeks away? Eh, technically a couple of months away, but folks reporting to camp, folks reporting to practices. We have players observing practices, potential recruits observing practices for this year's team already. It's look when you go international, apparently it's harder to get the players that you want in. For all the jokes that we can make about the University of Wisconsin's academic standards, I look, and I'm not that old, but I can't recall a time where we've had a snafu like this. One that prevents a player from getting onto campus, getting into the country entirely. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we got there. But good evening. Thank you for enjoying it with Six Pack, the Scotty Six Pack. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbers. You can find me on the website, formerly known as Twitter, at Kedrick Stumbers. I cover the Wisconsin Badgers for Athlon Sports and All Badgers. You can find my latest story for on All Badgers linked in the podcast description. Today we're going to talk about Riccardo Greppi. Putting in my best fake Italian accent that I possibly can. Because he's going to be playing basketball games, or at least participating in Wisconsin basketball practices very, 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 very soon for the Wisconsin Badgers. And I did not know that this guy existed before, what was it, 9, 10 a.m. this morning. So a big turn of events in the 2024 recruiting class comes on August 9th. We're going to talk a little bit about who is Riccardo Greppi, where did he come from, why is he here in Madison? Hopefully soon. I'm going to guess that the Badgers didn't jump the gun on this one after the why of is he here is because seemingly Wisconsin jumped the gun a little bit on their former signing. I guess still present signing. I guess I shouldn't use the past tense for Vukovich there, but Vukovich is not going to be arriving on campus. The Serbian big man will not be playing for the Wisconsin Badgers, at least not this season. So it's going to be a new fresh face rounding out the depth in the front court for the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll talk a little bit about his skill set, what I saw breaking down film for him, and where he fits into Greg Gard's plans for this upcoming season. But first, who is Riccardo Greppi? Who is he? Wisconsin basketball team announced this morning that they had, in addition to the 2024 recruiting class, and it is Riccardo Greppi, the freshman joining the Badgers out of Italy from the other Verona. Not Verona, Wisconsin, but yes, Verona in Italy. 6'10", played for Verona in the Italian Next Gen League, appearing in 8 games, averaging 9.1 points and 8.6 rebounds in those 8 games in the Italian League, in the Italian Next Gen League, I should say. And this is the thing when you go international for some of these folks, until you get the opportunity to talk with media sources, until you get an opportunity to talk with coaches after the player is signed on the dotted line and returned to campus. It's like right now I'm just scavenging for information, and the just line about, oh, he played in the Italian Next Gen League is seemingly just regurgitated everywhere without anybody telling me what that means. From what I can gather, the Next Gen League, I believe, used to be in the second tier of Italian, like professional to semi-professional basketball, below Serie A. I think now the Next Gen League is actually the third tier of, or is in that third tier of Italian basketball. Now, it's not a U18 league. It's above that U18 league. I think operates a little bit more like a U20 league out in Italy, which is all to say that, like, it's not the pinnacle of competition. So to say, it's not like one of these players who goes abroad to go play in the Australian NBL for a year and then comes back to play college basketball, or to skip playing college basketball. I guess the NBL, well, that's more of a thing. Play in the NBL semi-professionally in New Zealand, the New Zealand NBL, and then come back to play college basketball, like the newest signing in the 2025 class for Wisconsin, or the newest, yeah, newest signing. And Riccardo Greppi also played with the U18s in national team play for Italy as well. He had a couple of performances. Where did he play? 7 games? Yeah, 7 games at the U18 European Championships last season, where he had 2.3 points on 43% shooting, 3.6 rebounds. In the 2022 U18s, he averaged 2.4 points on 50% shooting and 4.2 rebounds in an average of 10 minutes per contest. So not overwhelming numbers, 10 minutes per contest. So not a ton of playing time at his disposal per 40 minutes. You're looking at a little over 9 points per game. That's not too shabby there in the U18s, but certainly not a guy who is coming over to the US with a ton of fanfare. I went searching for some other players who are coming to the United States to play college basketball from the Italian Next Gen League. One player that I found who also played, who is actually from Verona, Italy, but played for a different team in the Next Gen League, who is going to be joining Bradley in their 2024 recruiting class. They added Timothy Vandernap, who played over 24 minutes a game in every contest except for one. And I think he's a guard. So very different kind of team. And I know that Bradley has kind of a longer history of recruiting players internationally. So a bit of a different circumstance for the folks with the recruiting staff at Bradley. But really, that leads me to say there's just not a ton here that I can go and dig up and find on Riccardo Greppi. But what I was able to find, I was able to do some film analysis on. Um, and that, if you are watching this live right now, which you can on YouTube, youtube.com/@Scotty6pack. Of course, you can listen to this podcast wherever your ears get tickled by podcasts, but we are also on YouTube. That's the best way to get the show as soon as it drops, especially when we go live. You can subscribe over there, hit the bell to get notifications whenever we go live. You can also find this show live on my Twitter account from time to time. If you are watching live on the website formerly known as Twitter right now, twitter.com/@KedrickStumbris, you can scroll down to my timeline and also find me doing a bit of a film breakdown for Riccardo Greppi. I'm not going to spoil that all here because I encourage you to go and find that on my profile, but there's something here. There's something here. He is a guy who doesn't have. There's not a lot of film for this kid, right? Not a lot of eyeballs have gotten on him for folks in the United States to really digest. There's basically nothing on him for film on the defensive end. There is some clips showing him, protecting the rim and doing it well. I questioned, though, at 6'10", and guys got decent length, how much of that performance really stems from him just physically outmatching some of the competition that he has gone up against. From what I can tell, he has largely played against competition where he has just a physical size advantage. And he uses that length well, which is impressive, but he's not someone who's going to overwhelm you with length, right? He's not a 7-footer. He's not a Steven Crowell. He's not necessarily even a Nolan Winter. He is 6'10". So there is a bit of downside to that, but is a willing rim protector, someone who I think has the potential to protect the rim a little bit better than a Steven Crowell does, for example, which I know there are plenty of us who wish Steven Crowell was a little bit more of a rim protector for the Badgers, but a guy with solid basketball IQ fundamentally. I detailed a couple of those clips in the Twitter thread that I put together earlier this afternoon on Riccardo Greppi's film. And a guy who can step back and shoot a little bit too. Not necessarily the range of a Steven Crowell, but someone who's clearly worked on his game. There is lots to polish up there, but someone who for whatever this is for Wisconsin, right? A second, third, fourth, fifth option. Clearly, you wish that you had one of your earlier options in instead of Riccardo Greppi here. It's not horrible. I think he is a bit of a project, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. In terms of why he is a second, third, fourth option, this is what's strange, and why is Riccardo Greppi coming to Wisconsin? You had Vukovich supposed to be coming to the Badgers this upcoming season. The big man signed out of Serbia. That was announced. What was that, a month or so ago? There's some kind of paperwork snafu. That seems to be the line that is actually available to folks who are sourcing information. Is sources are calling it incomplete paperwork. I don't know that means it's a visa issue, which when I first heard that there was some snafu getting Vukovich here to the United States or here on campus, one or the other, because those two things aren't necessarily the same. It could be an admissions issue. It could be a visa State Department issue. It could be either one. It could be a Serbian government issue, right? When I first heard that there was a snafu, my head immediately went to it being some kind of a visa issue. But a visa issue can typically get ironed out. That there are avenues and channels to do this. And this is the first example I'm going to give is an extreme one. And I know this is not that, but wanting to get Giannis Antetokounmpo into the country from Greece along with his family, right? That required some pull, and fortunately you had Herb Cole, the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, being able to use some of his pull as a United States senator and his longtime friendship with then Secretary of State John Kerry to be able to get that done. But there are things that you can do, things that the university definitely has pull to be able to do, even if it's not going to a United States senator who knows the Secretary of State. It's contacting your representative in the House of Representatives, contacting Mark Pocan there. There are things that you can do to help iron out that visa process. And also public pressure in these situations works too. Because the statements and reports coming out are not specifying this is a visa issue, I think this might be more of a university paperwork problem. And I want to back up and pause and say, this is all incredibly speculative. Incredibly speculative. I know nothing. I know nothing other than what has been publicly reported beyond my experience coming from limited experience working around and with other government officials. Because the university has not specified this being a visa issue, I think it's not a visa issue. I think there is some snafu with admissions paperwork, whether that be the student athlete not getting that admissions paperwork in properly, could be the case here. I find it curious that for a big time college basketball program with some weight to throw around, the spokespeople for the program aren't pointing any fingers here for Vukovich's snafu, which makes me think that there is somebody who shouldn't have effed up here. Um, and you can't point the finger at the kid themselves, for example, right? Because maybe you want to get them back on campus next year. You got a lot of talent departing this team. Maybe you made the mistake yourself. You as the program did not properly go to admissions and say, "Hey, get this done," or or admissions didn't want to let them in. There was some issue there, and you don't want to signal as a program that, hey, we might have issues getting you into school. There's some potential academic requirement snafu that was not handled. Some academic equivalent to what is done in the United States for high school education. Some paperwork showing that academic equivalent was completed did not get properly submitted to the admissions department. And you as a basketball program don't want to put any reason for any recruit out there to doubt that you can get them into school if you are committed to that school. Particularly if you are going to continue going this international route. And what I think frustrates me from the fan perspective is if this is some kind of internal issue, if it's not a visa issue, if it's not an issue of the student athlete themselves not properly submitting their paperwork on time, if it is an issue internally for the university, like, how did we get here? It's not that these athletic programs at the university have no experience handling admissions for overseas recruits, right? The volleyball program does this all the time. And so there's some institutional knowledge there to build on. But here we are. So Wisconsin, you're not going to add Vukovich this fall. You are getting Riccardo Greppi. Like I said, he's raw. There's some stuff to like there. There is some stuff that makes him look quite a bit like the Wisconsin Bigs of the past. There is some stuff that makes him look different than the Wisconsin Bigs of the past. I detailed a bunch of that on my film breakdown on Twitter that you can go find on the website formerly known as Twitter. Follow me, Kedrick Stumbris, at Kedrick Stumbris. Lastly, I want to talk about where Riccardo Greppi fits into the rotation. You have a very different front court this upcoming season for the Wisconsin Badgers. Greppi is a center. I wonder if he can play something of a fringy 5'4" type of role. I don't necessarily think that he is as equipped to play that role as a Nolan Winter is, for example. Stephen Crowell and Nolan Winter playing on the floor. That's something we were told, I believe, last season that we might see more than we actually did within the actual season, but saw, a couple minutes of that during last season. I don't think Riccardo Greppi here is as equipped for that role necessarily, where going forward we would see Nolan Winter and Riccardo Greppi on the floor at the same time. But beyond Stephen Crowell, beyond Nolan Winter, you also have pieces in the front court replacing Tyler Wall, of course. That includes fellow incoming freshman Jack Robeson. He's more of a 4 by surely much closer to a 4-3 than a 4-5. And then you have Xavier Amos transferring in from Northern Illinois, and he's got 2 years of eligibility under his belt as well, also playing a power forward role. you got other folks in there. You have Carter Gilmore, you have Chris Hodges, but Greppi is gonna be hard pressed to see the floor this season. I think you obviously are losing folks in the front court after this year, folks that you are going to lose after the year ahead. Of course, include names that I had pulled up entirely because I wanted this at my disposal and I don't have it in front of me. But of course, you're losing Max Klesmit, you're losing Stephen Crowell. You are also going to lose a couple of the new guys while you are at it. New guys, including John Tanji. Kamari McGee is going to graduate out as well. This is Marcus Silver's last year of eligibility. So you're losing a lot of guys in the front court. So there is going to be minutes to go around. Not necessarily this season for Riccardo Greppi, but if he wants to give Greg Gard a reason to not necessarily go to the transfer portal this upcoming offseason, then you're going to want to go and push 4 minutes right away, because I think we are in for one minimum transfer portal addition to the front court next offseason. They already know, the program clearly knows that they need more front court depth, particularly given how much they are losing when they are already adding Will Garlock to next year's recruiting class and are going pretty hard after Tommy Yoneman as well. So there's a lot of room there in the front court for someone to grab the bull by the horns and say, these minutes are going to be mine. If not this year, they will next year. If not the year after that, when Xavier Ramos exhausts his eligibility as well. So my guess is that Riccardo Greppi is going to redshirt this season. I just think he's really raw. He has some length and athleticism, and there is just not a record of him playing against top level talent that gives me the belief that he will jump in right away and be ready to play Big Ten basketball. It's not that I don't think he can handle it. If you look at his film, he is willing to play through contact. He is used to getting, double teamed, in some cases triple teamed down low, and playing through that, playing through fouls, finishing at the rim. I just think there is too much around him already for someone to come in and get onto campus in August, maybe September, and me to feel confident that he's going to be an immediate difference maker for this Wisconsin Badgers basketball team. But that's what I got on Riccardo Greppi. First thing I thought when I saw that Wisconsin added a commit this morning, I saw the name. The first words out of my mouth was, "Oh, that is aggressively Italian." Very, very, very Italian name. And if you go and find film for Riccardo Greppi, and if you can't notice, I'm having a lot of fun with the accent. If you go and find film, the audio for the film is a lot of fun hearing announcers say his name. So it just rolls off the tongue. It's very good. We love these Latin languages. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Scotty Six Pack Podcast. You can find us wherever your ears get tickled by podcasts, as well as on YouTube, youtube.com/@Scotty Six Pack. Coming up tomorrow morning on the show. I don't think this will be a live episode, but we'll drop it into your feed tomorrow morning. Is going to be a bit of a preview for what to watch for in the Green Bay Packers preseason opener against the Cleveland Browns. A few positions that I think are worth noting for a Green Bay Packers fan, something to keep your eyes on. If you want more kind of go-to guides on what you should watch for in the preseason, you can also go and watch my other show that I host weekly with Noah Clark. That is Snap the Pigskin. You can find that wherever you're listening to this podcast, or find it on YouTube, youtube.com/@snapthepigskin as well. We did a little whip around of what you should watch for each day during the preseason, be that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One game to watch, one thing to watch for in each of those games this preseason. But until we talk to you tomorrow, take care. And on Wisconsin.